When my daughter-in-law called to tell me my son was dead and that I had no right to anything, I just smiled in silence. She had no idea that at that precise moment, my son was sitting right next to me alive, breathing, and planning how to unmask the charade that had almost killed him. Before I continue, leave a comment telling me where you are reading this from. I want to see how far our story has traveled. The clock struck exactly midnight when my phone rang. I was alone in the living room, as I had been for the last few weeks. The house felt bigger at night, quieter, as if the walls themselves were waiting for news. The ceiling fan spun overhead, making that monotonous humming noise that usually calmed me down. But that night, nothing could calm me. I looked at the cell phone screen. The name that appeared was Brenda, my daughter-in-law. My stomach dropped immediately. My heart raced. Richard, my son, always called me on Sundays. Religiously, even when he was swamped with work, even when he had important board meetings, he always found a way to call me, even if just for 5 minutes, just to say he was okay, that he was alive. But I hadn't heard from him in 3 days. 3 days of silence that weighed on my chest like a pile of bricks. I had tried calling several times. His phone rang and rang, then nothing. Voicemail. Always the same recorded message. Hi, you've reached Richard. I can't answer right now. Leave a message. And I did. Son, call me. I'm worried. But he never returned the call. I answered quickly with a trembling hand. Hello, Brenda. Where is Richard? Why isn't he calling me? The voice that came from the other side was cold. Emotionless, as if she were reading a grocery list, without feeling, without life. Mother-in-law. Richard died yesterday morning. The world stopped. I felt as if the floor had disappeared beneath my feet. My breath hitched. My heart seemed to have forgotten how to beat. What? What do you mean he died? Brenda, what kind of joke is this? This isn't funny. It's not a joke, she replied with that same mechanical voice. He was in a car accident. He hit a tree on the highway heading toward the mountains. The car caught fire. The body was unrecognizable. He's already at the funeral home. The burial is tomorrow at 10 a.m. My voice failed me. I tried to speak, but no sound came out, just a stifled moan, as if someone had ripped the air from my lungs. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait until now? I finally managed to ask, my voice cracking. I was busy handling everything, mother-in-law. Paperwork at the medical examiner's office, the registrar, insurance documents, the lawyer. I didn't have time to call before. It was hours and hours of bureaucracy. You have no idea how much work it is to organize a funeral. Busy. The word cut me like glass. My son was dead, and she was too busy to notify me. Brenda, I need to see my son. Where is he now? Which funeral home? He's already been cremated. The blood froze in my veins. Cremated? What do you mean cremated? I couldn't even say goodbye. How could you do that without telling me? It was my decision, mother-in-law. I am his wife. I have legal authority over the body. Richard always said he wanted to be cremated, so I simply fulfilled his wish. I felt rage rising in my throat like boiling lava, but I took a deep breath. It wasn't the time to explode. It wasn't the time to fight. I needed to understand what was happening. And Mikey? I asked, referring to my 7-year-old grandson. How is he? Did the boy see his father dead? He's fine. He's going to stay with me. Obviously, he is my son. Can I speak to him, please, Brenda? Let me talk to my grandson. He's sleeping. I'm not going to wake him up. He's already been through a lot of stress today. The silence that followed was heavy, dense, suffocating. I was still trying to process everything. The death, the cremation, the fact that I hadn't been able to say goodbye when Brenda dropped the final bomb. There is something else you need to know, mother-in-law. Richard left a will notarized 6 months ago. He left everything to me. The house in the country club, the car, the savings, the life insurance, absolutely everything. You have no right to anything, not even a penny. It was his choice. I stood paralyzed. Not because of the inheritance. I never cared about money. My son always helped me when I needed it, and that was enough. But because of the coldness, the way she said it, as if she were expelling me from my own son's life, as if I no longer had any value now that Richard was dead. Brenda, I never asked for anything. I never wanted anything. I just want to know what happened to my son. I just want to understand how the accident happened. Did he suffer? Was anyone with him? There's nothing to understand, mother-in-law. He was driving alone. He lost control of the car, hit the tree. The car burned. He died instantly. It was quick. He didn't suffer. It's over. And now I'm in charge of everything. I am the widow. I have responsibilities. If you want to come to the burial tomorrow, come. But don't make a scene. I don't want any drama in front of his family. His family. As if I weren't part of it. As if 9 months of pregnancy, childbirth, sleepless nights, and the hard work to raise that boy alone meant nothing. I will be there, I replied with a trembling but firm voice. I am going to say goodbye to my son, with or without your permission. Suit yourself. The burial is at 10 at the city cemetery. Goodbye, mother-in-law. And she hung up. Just like that, as if she had merely given me the weather report. I stared at the phone for several minutes. The screen went black. My hand was still gripping the device tightly. Tears began to fall without me realizing it. First slowly, then like waterfalls. Violent sobs shook my body. My son, my Richard, the boy I raised alone after his father abandoned us when he was just 3 years old. The man who always called me on Sundays. The dedicated father who adored Mikey dead. And I couldn't even say goodbye, couldn't hold his hand one last time, couldn't tell him I loved him. But something didn't add up. The more I thought about it, the more wrong everything seemed. Brenda's coldness. The cremation performed too quickly in less than a day, the will she mentioned as if it had been planned. The way she said, "You have no right to anything," as if she were savoring those words. Everything seemed calculated, rehearsed, fake. I tried calling Richard. I needed to hear his voice, even if it was just on voicemail. The phone rang. No one answered. I called again, straight to voicemail. Again, the same result. Again, nothing. I stood up on weak legs and went to the kitchen to get some water. My hands were shaking so much that I spilled water on the floor. I didn't care. I would clean it later or not. What did it matter now? My head was spinning. Could it be true? Had my son really died? And why did Brenda seem so satisfied? It wasn't sadness I heard in her voice. It was relief, as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. I went back to the living room and sat in the same chair again. The silence of the house was suffocating. I looked at Richard's photo on the mantelpiece. He was smiling, holding Mikey, still a baby, both of them wearing the national team jerseys at the stadium. A happy day, a day that would never return. My eyes filled with tears again. How was I going to live without my son? How was I going to wake up every day knowing he was no longer in this world? That was when I heard it, a faint, muffled sound coming from the back of the house. Knock, knock, knock. I stopped breathing. Who would be knocking at my door at this hour of the morning? I looked at the clock, 12:15 a.m. Knock, knock. I stood up slowly. My heart beat wildly. Each beat drummed in my ears. I walked toward the kitchen, where the sound was coming from. The back door. No one used that door. It opened to the backyard, always locked with 2 deadbolts. Knock, knock, knock. Who is there? I asked, trying to sound firm, but my voice came out trembling, weak. A weak, hoarse voice answered, almost a scratchy whisper, as if the person had an injured throat. Mom. I felt a chill run down my entire spine, a chill that started at the nape of my neck and went down to my feet. Who is it? I asked again, louder this time. Mom, it's me, Richard. My blood ran cold. My entire body was paralyzed. It couldn't be. Brenda had just said he was dead, cremated. How could he be knocking at my door? Richard? My voice came out shaking, incredulous. Is that really you? Please, Mom, open the door. I'm hurt. I can't stay standing much longer. My hands shook so much I could barely turn the key in the first lock. I tried, failed, tried again. Finally, I managed. Then the second lock. My fingers were numb. Finally, I pushed the door open slowly, and what I saw made me stagger back. A bloodied man, leaning against the doorframe with one hand, the other clutching his abdomen. Torn clothes, dirty with soil and dried blood, face beaten, one eye swollen and purple, almost shut, split lips. But I recognized him. It was my son, my Richard, alive, breathing, moaning in pain. "Oh my God!" I screamed, holding him by the shoulders before he fell. "Richard, what happened to you? Who did this to you?" He almost collapsed in my arms. He was heavy. I used all the strength I had, strength I didn't know I still possessed at my age, to drag him inside. I closed the door quickly, engaging both locks again. I laid him on the kitchen floor as carefully as possible. I ran to the bathroom, brought clean towels, and came back. I started applying pressure to the blood still oozing from a deep cut on his forehead. "Mom," he whispered, grabbing my hand tightly. Though weak, his grip was firm, desperate. She tried to kill me." "Who?" "Brenda." "Brenda did this to you?" He nodded, eyes full of pain and something else. Fear. My son was afraid. "She and her boyfriend set up the whole accident. It was all planned. They wanted to kill me. They wanted the insurance money." I felt the world collapsing again, but this time not from sadness, but from rage. A rage I had never felt in my life. A rage that burned, that boiled. "Don't talk right now," I whispered, trying to control my own breathing. "First I'm going to clean you up, dress these wounds, then you tell me everything calmly." I spent the next hour and a half cleaning Richard's wounds. Every cut, every scrape, every blood stain. He had a deep gash on his forehead that needed stitches, but we couldn't go to the hospital. Not yet. I did the best I could with butterfly closures and gauze. His right arm was purple and swollen in several places, likely a fracture. I bandaged it with what I had. There were burn marks on his chest and back, as if someone had— No, I didn't want to think about that right now. When I finished, I sat beside him on the cold kitchen floor. He was still pale, but breathing better, more regularly. "Tell me," I asked, holding his hand. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." Richard closed his eyes for a moment, gathering strength. He swallowed hard, then he began. "Brenda has had a lover for months, Mom. Almost a year. A guy named Andrew, an acquaintance from her work. I found out about 3 weeks ago." I swallowed dryly, continuing to listen without interrupting. I found messages on her phone. She had left it unlocked on the bed. I wasn't going to look, but the screen lit up with a notification and I saw conversations. Conversations about how to get rid of me, about the life insurance we took out together, about starting a new life with Mikey, with the insurance money. At first I thought it was just talk, fantasy, things a couple having an affair says, thinking about what if, you know. I nodded, continuing to listen. But then, yesterday morning, she woke me up early. She said we needed to talk, that she was tired of the marriage, that she wanted to separate, but before that, she wanted to make peace, go for a drive together, remember the old times. I agreed. I thought maybe the marriage could still be saved. He paused. His breathing became heavier, more irregular. We went out in the car. She was driving. She said she wanted to go to a special place, a highway we used to take when we were dating. It seemed strange to me, but I agreed. We went toward a lonely road heading out of town, almost deserted. And then he appeared. "Andrew?" I asked, feeling my heart clench. Richard nodded, tears starting to form in his eyes. They pulled me out of the car by force. Andrew had a metal pipe. He hit me several times in the head, on the back, in the stomach. I tried to defend myself, but he was bigger, stronger, and Mom. Brenda held my arms from behind, helped him. She laughed. She laughed while he beat me. Tears streamed down my face. My son, my boy, beaten by his own wife. And then? How did you escape? How are you alive? They thought they had killed me. I stopped moving, stopped screaming. I stayed completely still. Andrew kicked my ribs one last time and I didn't react. He said, "That's it, let's finish this." They threw me inside the car, my own car. They put me in the driver's seat, doused the inside with gasoline, and pushed the car off the road. It rolled down. It hit a tree. The impact woke me up. Everything was starting to catch fire. I managed to open the door, crawl out before it exploded. I hid in the brush. I waited. I waited for hours until it got dark. His voice was failing now. Every word was an effort. When night fell, I started walking. I couldn't go to the hospital. They would look for me there. I couldn't call anyone. My phone was left in the car, so I walked here, limping, stopping at every corner because the pain was too much. It took hours, but I needed to get here. I needed to get to my mom. I hugged him, careful not to hurt him more, and I wept. I wept for everything, for his pain, for the betrayal, for the evil, for the cruelty. But I also felt something else growing inside me. Determination, directed rage, a desire to fight. "Richard," I said firmly, wiping my tears. "If she thinks you're dead, we're going to let her think it. We're going to let her feel safe, let her plan her next step, let her spend the money she thinks she's going to receive. And then, when she least expects it, we are going to destroy her. We are going to make her pay for everything, for every wound, for every lie." He looked at me, and for the first time since he arrived, I saw a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Do you have a plan, Mom?" I smiled. A cold, determined smile of a woman who had just discovered what she was capable of. "Not yet, but I will. Rest assured, I will." I spent the entire early morning taking care of Richard. He couldn't go to the hospital. It would be too risky. If he was registered in any system, Brenda and Andrew would find out and try again. This time they would finish the job. So I did what I could with what I had at home. I cleaned all the wounds with hydrogen peroxide. Richard moaned in pain with every touch, but he held firm. I splinted his arm with some bandages I had kept from when I hurt my wrist years ago. I gave him the strongest painkillers I had, the ones I use for the arthritis in my knees. We improvised a splint for the arm using old magazines and more bandages. It wasn't ideal, but it would work until we found a trustworthy doctor. The burns on his chest were superficial, probably from the start of the fire before he managed to get out. I applied burn ointment and covered it with gauze. When the sun began to rise, around 5:30 a.m., he finally fell asleep on the living room sofa. I covered him with 2 thick blankets. He was shivering, probably from shock. I sat in the chair next to him, just watching him, watching his chest rise and fall. Alive, breathing. My son, alive, breathing. After Brenda called me saying he was dead, cremated, how many mothers in the world receive the news of their son's death and then discover it's a lie? How many have the chance to see their son alive again? I had been given that chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. But I also wasn't going to let Brenda get away with it. The phone rang at 6:30 a.m. I grabbed it quickly so as not to wake Richard. It was Brenda. "Mother-in-law, good morning." Her voice sounded tired, fake, as if she had rehearsed the exact tone of a grieving widow, but exhausted. I took a deep breath. I had to pretend. I had to make her believe I was devastated, that I suspected nothing. "Good morning," I replied, forcing my voice to tremble. It wasn't hard. I really was affected, just not for the reason she thought. I barely slept. I spent the whole night thinking about Richard. I can imagine. Mother-in-law, it's very hard to lose someone like this, suddenly, without warning, without being able to say goodbye. I almost didn't sleep either. I stayed up late resolving things. Things. What things? Cleaning up evidence of the crime? Rehearsing the role of the perfect widow? "The burial is still at 10, in the chapel at the city cemetery," she continued. "If you want to come, you are welcome. But as I told you yesterday, no drama. Richard's family will be there, his colleagues from work too. I need to maintain composure for myself and for Mikey." "I will go," I replied, keeping my voice weak. "I need to say goodbye to my son, even if it's just seeing the coffin, since I can't see his face. Yes, the cremation was necessary, mother-in-law. The body was badly damaged. It would be traumatic to have an open casket viewing. Believe me, it was for the best." "Best for whom?" "For you, who didn't want anyone examining the body and discovering the marks of the beating." "All right," I replied, swallowing my rage. "I'm going to get ready and I'll go. Thank you for letting me know. You're welcome. See you later then. Oh, and mother-in-law, try not to cry too much. Mikey will be there. I don't want him more traumatized than he already is." And she hung up without waiting for my response, as if everything was decided, controlled. I looked at Richard. He was still sleeping deeply. His body was probably finally relaxing after hours of tension and pain. I decided not to wake him. He needed rest, and I needed to go to that funeral. I needed to see what Brenda was plotting, see the charade with my own eyes, and keep up appearances so she wouldn't suspect anything. I left a note next to him on the coffee table, went to the funeral. I'll be back before noon. Stay hidden. Do not open the door. Do not answer the phone. There is food in the fridge if you need it. Take another painkiller in 2 hours. I love you more than anything, Mom. I put on my simplest black dress. I tied my hair in a low bun. I put on my large sunglasses, not just to hide eyes swollen from crying, but also to observe without being observed. And I left. The cemetery chapel was full, much more than I expected. Relatives, friends, Richard's co-workers, all dressed in black, whispering condolences. Some cried openly, others had that lost look of someone who still hasn't processed the news. And in the center of it all, a sealed urn, covered with a white cloth and a wreath of flowers. Next to it, a photo of Richard smiling, the same photo I had on my mantelpiece, him holding Mikey as a baby. I felt my stomach churn. That was a sham, an elaborate lie, and Brenda was in the center of it all, dressed in black from head to toe, with a veil over her face, crying in the arms of people I didn't even know. I approached slowly. Each step weighed tons. Not from sadness I knew Richard was alive, but from anger, from having to pretend, from having to participate in this lie. Brenda saw me and came toward me with red eyes, probably from rubbing them so much to fake crying. "Mother-in-law," she hugged me, a tight, long, theatrical hug. "I'm glad you came. I know it's hard. It is for me too." I returned the hug, but my body was rigid, every muscle tense. I wanted to push her, scream, denounce her, but I couldn't. Not yet. "Where is Mikey?" I asked, looking around. "He's with my mom in the front row. I thought it was better that he didn't wander around. He's very affected. He cried all night, asking for his dad, asking why his dad isn't coming home." I felt a stab in my heart. Mikey, my grandson, being manipulated, being used in a charade that was going to destroy his childhood. Can I go talk to him? Better not right now. He's very sensitive. "You can after the ceremony, perhaps." Before I could answer, the priest began a short ceremony. Words about life, death, resurrection, about how Richard had been a good man, a good father, a good husband. Every word cut me. Not because they were lies about Richard, he really was all that, but because it was all based on a fake death, on a deceit. I watched Brenda throughout the ceremony. She cried at the right moment. She wiped tears with an embroidered handkerchief. She held people's hands, accepted hugs. She was a perfect actress. But in some moments, when she thought no one was watching, I noticed it. A small smile, a look of relief, eyes scanning the crowd as if calculating who believed, who doubted, who might be a problem. And then he appeared. A tall man, in a dark, well-cut suit, black hair, well-combed with gel, handsome face, but with an arrogant expression. He entered discreetly through the side door and sat on the last bench, in the shadows. But Brenda saw him, and they exchanged a quick glance. But I noticed a look of recognition, of complicity. Andrew. It had to be him. The man who had helped beat my son, who had tried to kill him, and now was here at the fake funeral, probably enjoying his own handiwork. Rage boiled inside me, but I controlled myself. I breathed deep, I observed. The ceremony ended. The priest said the final prayer. People started to stand up. The urn would be taken to the columbarium, or at least that's what everyone thought. It was probably empty, or had ashes from a fireplace inside, anything but my son. I didn't accompany the procession. I couldn't stand to see more of that farce. I pretended to feel ill, which wasn't entirely a lie. My stomach was churning, my head hurt, my heart beat too fast. I left the chapel and sat on a bench outside in the wooded area of the cemetery. The sun was strong, birds were singing. Life went on, but inside everyone was crying for a man who wasn't dead. I watched from afar. Brenda said goodbye to everyone, thanked them for attending. She said she wanted to be alone for a moment before leaving. People respected that. They moved away, got into their cars, and left little by little. And when she was finally almost alone in the parking lot, he approached. Andrew stepped out of the shadows like a viper. They spoke quickly in low voices, looking sideways to see if anyone saw them. They didn't know I was there, partially hidden behind a large oak tree. She handed him something. It looked like a thick envelope, probably cash. He nodded, put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. He said something I couldn't hear. She replied, and then he pulled her by the waist and kissed her. Right there, in the cemetery parking lot, a few yards from where her husband's remains were supposedly resting. I had to cover my mouth with my hand, not to scream, not to vomit. The audacity, the lack of shame, the disrespect. The kiss lasted a few seconds. Then she pulled away, looked nervously around, and got into her car. Andrew went to the opposite side of the parking lot, got into a black car, and sped off. I sat there for a few more minutes, processing everything, etching every detail into my memory, every expression, every gesture. It would all be useful later. When I finally returned home, it was almost noon. Richard was awake, sitting at the kitchen table, drinking water slowly. He was still pale, but more alert. "How was it?" he asked as soon as he saw me. I closed the door carefully, locked it, and sat at the table with him. "A charade," I replied, taking off my dark glasses. She cried, pretended to be devastated. She played the role of the perfect widow. And Andrew was there. Richard gripped the glass tightly, his knuckles turned white. He had the nerve to show up? He did. He stayed in the back, discreet. And after the funeral, Richard. They kissed in the parking lot. She handed him an envelope, probably money. "My money," he said through grit teeth. "The money I worked years to save, that was for Mikey's future, and she is using it to pay the lover who tried to kill me." "Not for long," I stated firmly. "We are going to get everything back, and they are going to pay. Both of them." Richard looked at me for a long moment, then asked, "What do we do now, Mom?" "I can't simply show up and say I'm alive. She'll invent some story. She'll say I faked my death for, I don't know, for anything. And Andrew will disappear. They'll hide the evidence." He was right. We needed more than our word. We needed concrete, irrefutable proof. The messages, I remembered. You said you saw messages on her phone about the plan. If we get those conversations, we have the proof. She must have deleted everything or changed phones. Brenda is smart. She won't leave a trail. I thought for a moment. Then I had an idea. Maybe she didn't delete everything. Maybe she is too confident, believing she got away with it, that she is safe. People like that make mistakes. They relax, and that's where we catch them. "How are we going to get her phone?" I smiled. A calculated, cold smile. "She invited me to go to her house to pick up some of your things. She said she set aside clothes, papers, photos, that I can take whatever I want as a keepsake. I'll go tomorrow. It's risky, Mom. What if she suspects?" "She won't. I'm playing the role of the grieving, resigned mother to perfection. She thinks she has me in the palm of her hand, that I'm weak, broken. She underestimates me, and that will be her mistake." Richard nodded slowly. Confidence was returning little by little to his eyes. "So, what do I do in the meantime? Stay hidden here? For now, yes. You can't go out. You can't be seen. I'm going to see if I can get a trustworthy doctor to check that arm. It looks like you have a fracture, but it has to be someone who won't record anything officially." "Dr. Sarah Jenkins," Richard suggested. "That doctor who treated Mikey when he broke his finger, remember? She has a private practice. She was always discreet, and I helped her once with some zoning paperwork for her clinic. She owes me one. I'm going to call her, see if she can come here to the house. No records, no questions." I spent the rest of the day taking care of Richard, changing bandages, preparing light food he could eat without nausea, and planning every detail of what I would do at Brenda's house. That night I called Dr. Jenkins. I explained vaguely that Richard had been in an accident but couldn't go to the hospital for complicated reasons. She hesitated, asked questions, but when I mentioned it was urgent and that we would pay well for her discretion, she agreed. She came early the next morning, examined Richard, confirmed the fracture in his arm, brought a portable X-ray unit in her car, cast it properly, prescribed stronger medicine for the pain and for infection, and most importantly, she asked no questions. "I don't know what is going on," she said at the door before leaving, "and maybe it's better that I don't know. But take care of yourselves, and if you need anything else, call me. But only in a true emergency. Understood?" "Understood. And thank you, doctor. You saved my son." She looked at me with a strange expression. as if she wanted to say something, but just nodded and left. The next morning, I got ready. I put on simple clothes, nothing flashy. I took a large purse. I would pretend I was taking things, but inside I put a small digital recorder I had bought years ago to record recipes from the radio. I never thought I would use it for this. Before leaving, I looked at Richard. He was sitting on the sofa with his arm in a cast, propped up on pillows. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" he asked, worried. "Sure, trust me. I'll be fine. I'll get what we need. If anything weird happens, anything at all, call me." Promised. Promised. I drove to the house that used to be Richard's, the house where he lived with Brenda and Mikey for 7 years. A nice house in a good neighborhood, bought with his hard work, and which now Brenda believed was hers alone. I rang the doorbell. My heart beat fast, but I kept my expression calm. Serene, the grieving mother who only wanted some memories of her son. Brenda opened the door with a polite smile. She was dressed casually, black leggings and a white blouse, hair in a ponytail, no makeup, trying to look like the widow in mourning but trying to move on. "Mother-in-law, come in." She ushered me in. "Sorry for the mess. I'm organizing some things." I entered. The house was impeccable, too clean, too organized, as if nothing had happened, as if Richard had never existed. "Coffee?" she offered. "Yes, thanks. With sugar, please." "I remember," she said, going to the kitchen. I took the opportunity to look around. On the coffee table in the living room, I saw it. Her cell phone, unlocked, with the screen lit up as if she had just used it. My heart raced. It was the chance, but she was coming back from the kitchen. We sat in the living room. She served the coffee in delicate cups. She sat across from me, leaving the phone exactly where it was, on the table, between the two of us. "Well," she began, "I set aside some of Richard's things. They are in the bedroom. Clothes I know were important to him, old documents, photos from when he was little, those things moms like to keep. You can take whatever you want." "Thank you, Brenda. It means a lot to me to have something of his." She nodded, taking a sip of coffee. Her eyes were empty, without real emotion. About the will, she continued with a firmer voice. "I know it must be hard for you to accept that Richard left everything to me and Mikey, but it was his choice. He wanted to ensure we would be okay. You understand, right? You understand I forged a will to steal everything from my son." But I only nodded, keeping my expression neutral. "I understand. He was always a good husband to you. He always took care of his family." "He was," she agreed with that fake smile. "That's why the loss hurts so much, the void. I still can't believe he's gone." That was when I faked it. I stood up quickly, putting my hand to my forehead, making a face. "Oh, sorry. I feel dizzy. I think it's my blood pressure. I haven't slept well. Can I use the bathroom? Splash some water on my face?" Sure. She stood up, worried or pretending to be. "Do you want me to go with you?" "No need. I know the way. I've been here so many times." I went to the bathroom, but I didn't go in. I stayed behind the slightly open door, watching. Brenda had sat back down. She grabbed the phone, started typing something fast, concentrated. I waited a few minutes, turned on the faucet so it would make noise, then turned it off and returned to the living room. "Better?" she asked. "Yes, thanks. The coffee helped too." I sat down again, took another sip, and that was when her phone rang. She looked at the screen and sighed. "Sorry, mother-in-law, I have to take this. It's the lawyer about the estate papers. Don't worry, answer it. It's important." She stood up and went out to the back patio, closing the sliding glass door behind her. I could see her through the glass, but I couldn't hear what she was saying. This was my chance, maybe the only one. I looked around. No one. I grabbed her phone from the table, still unlocked. What luck. My heart beat so loud I thought she would hear it from outside. I opened the Messages app, searched for Andrew. I found him. And what I saw froze me to the bone. Messages, hundreds of them talking about the plan, the accident, the insurance, starting a new life. It was all there. Every detail, every stage. Even photos of the forged will, of the insurance policies, of documents she had forged. And the most terrifying part, there was a message from 3 days ago. "Andrew, are you sure he's dead, Brenda?" "Brenda, sure. I saw the car burn. No one survives that." Andrew. And if he survived? If he went to a hospital? Brenda. Impossible. But I'll keep an eye on the hospitals in the area. If anything shows up, you know what to do. Andrew. I know. This time I finished the job properly. My hand was shaking. They were still looking for him. They still wanted to make sure Richard was dead, and if they discovered he was alive, they would try again. I didn't have time to read everything. Quickly, I selected all the conversations with Andrew. I hit forward, typed my own number, and sent it. Then I went into sent messages, deleted the record of the sending, left everything as it was. I put the phone back in the same spot, exactly in the same position. I took a deep breath, my heart still racing. Seconds later, Brenda returned. She put the phone in her pocket without looking. "Sorry for the delay," she said. "Lawyers are always complicated, lots of red tape, I imagine. You must be exhausted with all this." "I am, but I have to be strong. For Mikey. He needs me now." We talked for a few more minutes. She showed me the boxes she had separated with Richard's things, old clothes, some school papers, childhood photos, as if that were enough, as if that compensated for trying to kill my son. "Thank you for keeping all this." I thanked her, grabbing one of the boxes. "It means a lot." "You're welcome, mother-in-law. It's the least I can do. After all, you are his mother. You always will be." I wanted to laugh or cry or scream, but I held back. I left that house with my heart racing. I got into the car, drove a few blocks, pulled over at a gas station, and then, finally, I grabbed my phone. There were all the messages, all the proof, everything we needed to destroy Brenda and Andrew. I smiled. For the first time in days, I felt real hope. I called Richard. "Mom, is everything okay?" "It's perfect, son." I did it. I got everything. I arrived home and put the boxes on the living room floor. Richard was on the sofa, waiting anxiously. As soon as I entered, he stood up carefully because of the cast. "Well, did you get it?" I held the phone in my hand. I opened the messages, showed them to him. I got everything. All the conversations, all the evidence, even photos of the fake documents. Richard grabbed the phone with his good hand, started reading, and with every message, his expression changed. Rage, sadness, shock, disbelief. "My God," he whispered. "She planned this months ago. Look at this. This message is from 4 months ago. It was already agreed upon. I sat next to him. We read together. It was worse than I imagined. There were messages about how to simulate the accident, where to do it, how to ensure it looked real. Talks about the insurance, how much she would receive, how long it would take, and the most gruesome part, messages about Mikey. Brenda. And Mikey, what do we do with him? Andrew, take him. Kids are a hassle. I can find a family to adopt him. Brenda. I don't know. He looks a lot like Richard. Every time I see him, I remember. Andrew. Well, decide already. Either you take him or leave him with the grandmother. But after we collect the insurance, there's no turning back. Brenda. I'll think about it. But I think I'll leave him to his grandmother. I'll say I can't take care of him alone, that I'm too unwell. She'll accept. Richard was trembling with rage, with pain. She was going to get rid of Mikey, our boy, as if he were an object, as if he didn't matter. But she won't, I stated firmly, because we aren't going to let her. These messages are proof enough. Let's go to the police. Do you think they are going to believe us over a grieving widow with papers in order, a death certificate, a notarized will, that she is a murderer? They are going to believe us when they see you alive, with the wounds, with the full story, and with these messages confirming everything. Richard stayed silent for a moment, thinking, processing. "We need a lawyer," he said finally. "A good one, someone who knows criminal cases, because when we report this, it's going to be chaos. Media, police, investigation. And Brenda is going to hire the best lawyers her money, which was mine, can buy. I know someone," I remembered. "Mr. Miller. That lawyer who helped Mrs. Marissa from the market when her son was put in jail unjustly. Remember? He managed to prove the boy's innocence. He is good and honest. Call him. Ask for an appointment. Here at the house. I can't go out yet." I called. I explained the situation vaguely. Attorney Miller was intrigued. He said he would come the next day, early in the morning. We spent the rest of the day organizing everything, printing the messages, making a timeline of events, noting every detail Richard remembered of the attack, building a complete file. That night, while Richard slept, finally managing to rest a little, I sat alone in the kitchen looking at all those printed sheets scattered on the table. My son had almost been murdered by his own wife for money, for ambition, for pure selfishness. And she was still out there free, making plans, spending the money she thought was hers, living life as if nothing had happened. But not for long. Very soon, everything would come crashing down on her, and I would be there to see it. Attorney Albert Miller arrived promptly at 8 a.m. He was a man of about 50 with graying hair, thick-rimmed glasses, a serious but kind expression. He carried a worn leather briefcase. We sat, the three of us, at the living room table. We told him everything. From start to finish, Richard showed his wounds. I showed the printed messages. We explained the fake funeral, the forged will, the plan to get rid of Mikey. Mr. Miller listened in silence, taking notes, occasionally shaking his head in disbelief. When we finished, he took off his glasses, cleaned them with a handkerchief, put them back on, and spoke. This is one of the most absurd cases I have seen, and believe me, I have seen a lot in my career. So, can you help us? I asked. I can and I will. But we have to do this right, step by step, because Brenda holds all the cards right now. Official documents, registered death certificate, notarized will. If we simply show up saying Richard is alive, she is going to claim it is fraud, that you faked your death to, I don't know, to run away from debts, for some scam. But the messages, Richard pointed to the papers, they prove everything. They prove a lot, but we need more. We need witness testimony. We need a medical report confirming your injuries match the story. We need to investigate Andrew, know who he is, where he is, if he has a record, and above all, we need to catch them red-handed. What do you mean red-handed? I asked. Mr. Miller leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. Brenda is going to collect the insurance soon, right? $2 million. It is probably already in process. And according to the messages, she is going to meet Andrew to split the loot. That is the moment when she transfers the money or hands it to him in cash with the police ready to catch them. But how will we know when that will happen? Asked Richard. Do you still have access to any shared account with her? Email? Anything? Richard thought for a moment. Yes, we had a household email for bills, paperwork, those things. She must think I don't have access anymore, but I know the password. Perfect. Check it. Look for any notice from the insurance company, any communication about the payment. In the meantime, I'm going to start building the complaint and get in touch with a trusted commander, someone who won't leak information ahead of time. He stood up and grabbed his briefcase. One last thing, he said seriously. Until the day of the operation, Richard cannot leave the house. No one can see him. If someone recognizes him and talks, the surprise factor is gone, and we lose the best chance to put them in jail. Understood, Richard agreed. I stay hidden here until it's time to resurrect. Mr. Miller smiled slightly. Exactly. Until it's time to resurrect. The following days were of intense preparation. Richard accessed the shared email. He discovered that the insurance company had already approved the payout. The $2 million would be deposited into Brenda's account in a week. In the messages between her and Andrew, they were planning the meeting. It would be at a hotel downtown. She would bring half in cash, $1 million. The rest would stay in her account so as not to raise suspicions with large movements all at once. Attorney Miller took all the information to Detective Vance, a serious career man who had worked on homicide and fraud cases. He analyzed everything, the messages, Richard's wounds, the timeline, and agreed to help. They set up the operation. On the day of the meeting between Brenda and Andrew, there would be undercover police officers in the hotel, microphones hidden in the room, cameras, everything to capture the moment when she handed over the money and they spoke openly about the crime. And Richard. Richard would be there hidden, waiting for the right moment, the moment to return from the dead and destroy Brenda's perfect plan. The week passed slowly. Every day seemed like 48 hours. Richard was increasingly anxious. He paced around the house, within limits, always away from the windows, like a caged lion. The cast bothered him less now. The other wounds were healing, but the emotional wound, that was far from healing. I tried to keep him distracted. I cooked his favorite dishes. We watched movies together, talked about Mikey, about how it would be when we got him back, about life after all this ended. "Do you think he'll forgive me?" Richard asked one night while we were having dinner. "Forgive you? Why?" "For disappearing. For letting him think I died. For causing him all that trauma." I took his hand. "Son, you didn't cause any trauma. It was Brenda. You are the victim here. Maybe not right now, but when he grows up, when he can process everything, he will understand and will be grateful that you fought, that you survived. I hope so, because the guilt is killing me, Mom. Every night I dream he is crying, calling me, and I can't go to him. A few more days, just a few more days, and then you can hug your son again, forever." The day finally arrived, Friday, the day of the meeting between Brenda and Andrew. Attorney Miller called early. "Everything is ready. Detective Vance and his team are positioned. The hotel is prepped. We managed to get Andrew to book the room without knowing it's a trap. Brenda will see him at 3 p.m., and Richard comes with me at 2. We enter discreetly. He stays in a monitoring room the police set up in the hotel. From there he can follow everything. And when it's time, he will enter the room. Will it be safe? The police will be right outside the door, armed. If Andrew tries anything, he will be subdued immediately." I hung up. I looked at Richard. He was dressed in dark clothes, a cap pulled down low, sunglasses, trying to be as discreet as possible. "Ready?" I asked, more than ever. I hugged him tight, as if it were the last time, because in a way it was. It was the last time before everything changed, before the whole truth came to light. "Go there and end this. And bring my grandson back." "I will. I promise." I stayed home alone waiting. Mr. Miller had given me a number to call if I needed to, but the plan was to sit tight, let the professionals do their work. But the anxiety was unbearable. I walked back and forth. I checked the clock every minute. 2 p.m. Richard should be at the hotel. 2:30 p.m. Brenda was probably on her way. 2:45 p.m. 15 minutes to the meeting. 0 p.m. My cell phone rang. It was Attorney Miller. "She arrived," he said in a low voice. "She's going up. She's carrying a suitcase. Surely it's the money. Andrew is already in the room. And Richard is fine, nervous, but fine. He's watching everything on the screens. Keep me informed, please. Don't worry." I hung up, sat on the sofa, took a deep breath, and waited. From Richard's perspective, I was in a small room full of equipment. The screens showed the hotel room from various angles, microphones capturing every sound. Detective Vance was beside me, Mr. Miller on the other officers monitoring the equipment. "Remember," said Vance, "you only enter when I give the signal. When they have confessed everything, when we have clear evidence of the act, not before. Understood?" "Understood." On the monitor, I saw the room door open. Brenda entered, dressed casually, jeans, white blouse, hair down, pulling a medium-sized travel suitcase. Andrew was sitting on the bed. He stood up when he saw her, smiled, kissed her. A long, intimate kiss. I had to hold back the urge to punch the screen. "Did you bring it?" he asked. "I brought it," she replied, putting the suitcase on the bed. She opened it. It was full of stacks of bills, $100 bills, organized, counted. "It's the 1 million, he confirmed. "Exactly, your share, just like we agreed." Andrew grabbed one of the stacks, ran his thumb through the bills, smiled, satisfied. Finally, the whole job was worth it. Brenda let out a short laugh. "You think it was work? I was the one who had to endure 7 years married to that idiot. Working, 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 with no time for anything, without him paying attention to me. I deserved more. I deserved this." She pointed to the money. "And now you have it. Now I have it. And no one suspects a thing. The police closed the case as an accident. The body was cremated. There is no way for them to investigate further." Andrew sat on the edge of the bed. "Are you sure he died?" "Not a chance he survived." Brenda shook her head. "None. You hit him with everything. He was bleeding out, barely breathing. And when the car caught fire, there is no way he got out. But if he shows up," Andrew started. "He won't show up," she interrupted firmly. "Richard is dead, and we are free." On the screen, I saw Detective Vance give a signal. It was enough. Clear confession. Perfect sting. "Let's go," he said. "Now it's your turn." I walked down the hotel hallways. 3 plainclothes officers went ahead. Mr. Miller beside me. Detective Vance right behind. My heart was beating so hard I felt like it was going to explode. The cast weighed on me. Every step echoed in the silent hallway. We stopped in front of the door, room 412. On the other side, Brenda and Andrew, believing they were safe, that they had succeeded, that the perfect crime had worked out for them. Vance gave a signal. The officers positioned themselves, hands on their holsters, ready. "When I knock," he whispered, "you come in right behind me. Let me speak first, then you appear. It will be the moment of greatest impact." I nodded. My throat was dry. I tried to swallow. I couldn't. Vance knocked on the door. 3 firm knocks. "Room service," he said, faking his voice. Silence on the other side. Then footsteps. The door opened a crack. Andrew peeked his face out. Look of annoyance. "We didn't order any." He didn't finish the sentence. Vance pushed the door hard. He entered. The officers behind. I entered last. The scene froze for a second. Brenda was near the bed holding a stack of bills. Andrew was still near the door, both with looks of absolute shock. "Police!" Vance showed his badge. "Nobody move!" Andrew tried to run. He was subdued immediately by 2 officers, tackled to the floor, handcuffed in seconds. Brenda dropped the money, brought her hands to her mouth, eyes wide. What is happening? I didn't do anything." "Why are you here?" "You are under arrest," Vance said calmly, "for attempted murder, insurance fraud, forgery of documents, and money laundering. That is absurd. You can't do that. I am a widow. My husband died. Ask anyone. There is a death certificate. Everything is registered." "Really?" a voice said. My voice. I took a step forward. I took off the cap. I took off the sunglasses. Brenda saw me, and her world came crashing down. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." "Hello, Brenda," I said with a firm voice, despite shaking on the inside. "Surprised to see me?" She stumbled back. She sat on the edge of the bed, white as a sheet, eyes fixed on me as if seeing a ghost, and in a way, she was. You are. But how? Dead? I completed. That's what you wanted, isn't it? For me to die on that highway, for the car to explode with me inside, for you to keep everything, the house, the money, the freedom to live with your lover. No, Richard, no. You don't understand. Don't understand what? My voice rose. All the rage I had been holding exploded. I don't understand that my own wife planned to kill me, that she hired her lover to beat me, that she threw me in a car and set it on fire, that she then held a fake funeral and pretended to cry. It wasn't me. It was Andrew. It was his idea. I didn't want to. Liar! Andrew shouted from the floor, handcuffed. It was your idea. You planned every detail. I just did the job. Brenda looked at him with hate. Shut up, you idiot. You just confessed everything, Vance smiled, and you were both recorded. Every word, every confession, including the part where you said I deserved to die because I was a bad husband. Brenda hid her face in her hands, started to cry, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were of rage, of frustration because she had lost. Brenda Morales and Andrew Castle, Vance said formally, you are under arrest. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The officers lifted Andrew from the floor. Another officer handcuffed Brenda. She kept crying, screaming, saying it was an injustice, that she was the victim. But no one listened to her. When they took her out of the room, she passed by me. She stopped. She looked me in the eyes, and for the first time, I saw something real in that look. Hate. You should have died, she whispered. But I didn't. And now you are going to pay for everything. They took her away. Andrew, too. The room was empty. Only me, Vance, and Attorney Miller. My legs failed. I sat on the bed, put my head in my hands, and for the first time in days, I cried not from sadness, but from relief. Finally, it was over. Mr. Miller put a hand on my shoulder. You were very brave, Richard. Very strong. Now justice will do its job. Vance sat beside me. We are going to need your formal statement, and we will need a complete medical examination, document every wound, build the case. But with today's sting, with the recordings, with the messages, the case is closed. They are going to spend a long time in prison. And Mikey? I asked. My son, what happens to him now? You are going to petition for custody. As the biological father and sole legal guardian, now that the mother is arrested, there will be no problem. The judge will grant it immediately. I took a deep breath. Mikey. Finally, I could see my son again. Hug him, explain everything, rebuild our lives together. I stood up, still shaking but firm. Let's finish this. I want to give my statement. I want every detail recorded. Every wound, every lie. I want it so that when this case goes to trial, there is no doubt about what they did. Vance smiled. That's how I like it. We are going to do this right, so that true justice is served. I returned to the house late in the afternoon, exhausted but relieved. My mom was waiting for me at the door. As soon as she saw me, she ran to hug me. You did it? Did they arrest them? I did it. They are in jail. They confessed everything. It was recorded. There is plenty of proof to convict them. She cried with happiness, with relief. Thank God, my son. Thank God. We went inside, sat down, and I told her everything, every detail. What it was like to see Brenda receive the money. What it was like hearing her confess. What the moment was like when I entered the room and she saw me alive. And now? Asked my mom. What's next? Now I go get Mikey. I'm going to Brenda's mother's house. I'm going to bring my son back, and we are going to start over, the three of us. You, him, and me. She smiled. That mother's smile that knows her son is finally safe. We are going to rebuild everything together, like a real family. The next day I went for Mikey. Attorney Miller went with me. We had to do everything legally with the court order in hand so there wouldn't be problems. Brenda's mother, Mrs. Elvira, lived in a small apartment. When she opened the door and saw me, she almost fainted. Richard, but you were dead. The funeral. Brenda lied, I said gently. Can I come in, Mrs. Elvira? I have to explain some things to you, and I need to see Mikey. She ushered me in, still in shock. We entered. Mikey was sitting on the love seat watching cartoons. When he saw me, he froze. His eyes got huge. The remote control fell from his hand. Dad? I knelt in front of him. I opened my arms. Hi, son. It's me. For real. He stayed quiet for a few more seconds, processing, trying to understand. Then, as if a dam had broken, he threw himself into my arms. He cried, sobbed. He clung to me as if he were afraid I would disappear again. Dad! I thought you died. Mom said you were never coming back. I know, son. I know. But here I am. And I'm never leaving again. I held him like that for several minutes. I let him cry. I cried with him. Mrs. Elvira cried too. Attorney Miller wiped his eyes discreetly. When Mikey finally calmed down a little, I sat on the sofa with him on my lap. Son, I have to tell you some things. Difficult things. But you have to know the truth. Mom lied? He asked, with that innocence of a child who still believes parents are perfect. She lied, son. Your mom did some very bad things. And now she is in a place where people stay who do bad things, to think about what they did. Is Mom in jail? His eyes filled with tears again. Yes. Because she hurt Dad. She tried to make Dad go away forever. But she couldn't. And now you are going to live with me and Grandma Margaret. Okay. Mikey stayed quiet, thinking. Then he nodded slowly. Can I see my mom once in a while? The question broke my heart, because despite everything, he still loved his mother, and I couldn't take that away from him. Yes, son. When you want, when you are ready, we will go see her. Okay. Mrs. Elvira approached, still crying, still processing everything. Richard, I swear I didn't know anything. Brenda never told me anything. If I had known. My God, if I had known. I know, Mrs. Elvira. It's not your fault. Brenda fooled us all, even her own mother. What is going to happen to her? She is going to be judged. She is going to answer for her crimes. And she will probably spend many years locked up. She covered her face, crying for her daughter, for the woman she raised who was now a criminal. We left there with Mikey. We took some of his clothes, some toys, the essentials. I would pick up the rest later. On the way to the house, Mikey was quiet in the back seat, looking out the window, processing everything in his own way. "Dad," he called suddenly. "What is it, son? Are you going back to work?" The question took me by surprise, but it was so normal, so childlike, as if the only thing that mattered was routine, normalcy. "Yes, son, but I'm going to work less. I'm going to spend more time with you, I promise." "And Grandma is going to make chocolate cake?" I smiled for the first time in weeks. A real smile. "Yes, you can be sure of that." The following weeks were of adaptation. Mikey started going to therapy. The psychologist said he was handling it well, but that it would take time, that there was trauma, that we would have to have patience. And we did. All the patience in the world. I returned to work little by little. My colleagues were shocked. They had gone to my funeral. They thought I was dead, and now I was there, alive, explaining that it had all been a trap, that my wife had tried to kill me. The story leaked to the press, appeared on the news, in the papers, on the internet. Man returns from the dead to denounce wife. I didn't like the exposure, but it was inevitable. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later. Attorney Miller said it would be a quick process. The evidence was irrefutable. Recorded confession, messages, documented wounds. There was no possible defense. During those months, Brenda tried to contact me several times. Letters from jail, asking to talk, asking for forgiveness, saying she was repentant, that it had been a mistake, that she still loved me. I threw all the letters in the trash without reading them after the first one. There was nothing she could say that would change what she had done. Mikey asked to go see her twice. The first time was with the psychologist. He came back quiet, sad, but said it had been important, that he needed to see that his mom was alive for real, that she hadn't disappeared. The second time was with me. We sat, the three of us, in a visiting booth with the glass in between, phones to speak. Brenda cried when she saw Mikey. She said she missed him a lot, that she regretted it, that if she could turn back time. Mikey listened. He didn't say much, just, "Bye, Mom, take care," and we left. On the way, he asked me, "Dad, is it wrong that I still love my mom?" I took his hand. "No, son, it's not wrong. She is your mother, and love doesn't get erased just like that. Just be careful not to confuse loving her with accepting what she did. You can love her and still know that what she did was very wrong." He sat thinking. I think I understand. The day of the trial finally arrived. The room was packed. Press, curious onlookers, relatives from both sides. Everyone wanted to see the woman who tried to kill her husband, the man who returned from the dead. Brenda entered escorted. She looked different, thinner, hair dull, deep dark circles. Jail was taking its toll. Andrew entered after. He also looked finished, beaten by life. I sat in the first row. My mom beside me. Attorney Miller behind. Mikey stayed home with a neighbor. I didn't want him to see that. He had already seen enough trauma. The judge entered. We all stood up. The session began. The prosecutor presented the evidence one by one. They read the messages out loud. They played the recordings from the operation in the hotel. They showed the photos of my wounds, the medical reports confirming they were from a beating. The defense tried to fight. They argued that Brenda was under emotional pressure, that the marriage was bad, that she wasn't in her right mind. But the evidence was devastating. There was no way to deny it, no way to justify it. When it was my turn to testify, I went up to the stand, put my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth, and told everything. Every detail, every pain, every moment of desperation, every second I thought I was going to die. I looked at Brenda several times while I spoke. She kept her head down. She couldn't hold my gaze. Her lawyer tried to make me lose control in the cross-examination. He asked if I had been a good husband, if I hadn't given her reasons to look for someone else, if I hadn't neglected the marriage. I was an imperfect husband, I replied. I worked a lot. Sometimes I didn't give her the attention I should have. But never, ever, did I do anything that justified an attempted murder. A bad marriage is fixed with divorce, not homicide. The room applauded. The judge banged the gavel asking for silence. Andrew also testified. He tried to throw all the blame on Brenda. He said she had manipulated him, that he was just a lover in love who did crazy things for love. But the prosecutor tore his testimony apart. He showed messages where he clearly planned every detail, where he talked about his share of the money, where he talked about getting rid of me. After 3 days of trial, the time for sentencing arrived. The judge read slowly, analyzing all the evidence presented, the testimonies, the expert reports. There is no doubt that the defendants, Brenda Morales and Andrew Castle, planned and executed the attempted aggravated homicide against Richard Morales. Furthermore, they committed insurance fraud, document forgery, and money laundering. He paused. He looked at the defendants. Brenda Morales, you are sentenced to 28 years in prison in a maximum security facility. Brenda screamed, cried, kicked. The guards had to subdue her. Andrew Castle, you are sentenced to 25 years in prison. Andrew just lowered his head. He knew he was finished. Furthermore, continued the judge, all assets obtained by fraud must be returned to Richard Morales. The house, the insurance money, everything. And custody of the minor Michael Morales remains permanently with his father, Richard Morales. The gavel struck once, twice, 3 times. Court is adjourned. I felt my mom grab my hand, squeeze it tight. She was crying, but this time from relief that justice had been done. When we left the courthouse, there were reporters, microphones, cameras. Everyone wanted a statement. Attorney Miller stepped in front. He spoke for me. Richard Morales is satisfied with the court's decision. Now he just wants to rebuild his life, take care of his son, and move on. There will be no further statements. We ask for respect and privacy. Thank you. And we left quickly. We got in the car, went home. In the months that followed, life began to normalize. I returned to work full-time. Mikey went back to school. Therapies continued, but little by little the nightmares went away. The smiles returned. I bought a new house, far from where I lived with Brenda. A new place, without ugly memories, where Mikey could grow without the weight of the past in every room. My mom moved in with us, helped with Mikey, cooked, took care of us as she always did, as she always would. I met someone, a teacher at Mikey's school, Paula, kind, attentive, patient. She knew the story, knew everything, and still wanted to get to know me, wanted to be part of our life. It took me time. I was afraid to trust, afraid to give myself, afraid of being betrayed again. But Paula had patience. She went slow. First, she won over Mikey, who adored her. Then she won over my mom, who gave her approval immediately. And finally, she won my heart. We got married 2 years later. A small wedding. Only family and close friends. Mikey was the ring bearer. My mom cried with emotion, and for the first time since that terrible night I was almost killed, I felt complete again. I felt I had a real family constructed on love, on trust, on truth. Brenda served her sentence, 28 years. Mikey visited her a few times the first years. Then he stopped going. He said he was at peace with the past, that he had forgiven not because she deserved it, but because he needed it to move on. When she got out of jail, she was already an old woman, broken, repentant. She tried to look for us, but Mikey, now a grown man, didn't want to. I already forgave, he told me. But forgiving doesn't mean forgetting nor having a relationship again. She made her choices, and I made mine. I felt proud of the man he became, strong, fair, good, everything I could have wished for. Andrew died in prison in a fight between inmates. I felt nothing when I found out. Not anger, not joy, just nothing. It didn't matter anymore. Today, years later, I look back and see a whole life full of pain. Yes, of betrayal, of almost dying, of trauma, but also full of new beginnings, of love, of family, of overcoming. The midnight call, the back door, the bloodied body, the fake funeral, the trial, all that is part of my story, but it doesn't define me. Because I learned that they can almost destroy us, almost kill us, take everything from us. But as long as there is life, there is choice. I can choose to be the victim forever. Or I can choose to be a survivor. I can choose for the past to define me. Or I can choose to build a better future. And I chose to rebuild with my mom, with my son, with my new wife, with love, with truth, with justice. Brenda tried to kill me, but what she didn't know is that by doing so, she made me be reborn. She made me stronger. She made me value every second of life, every hug, every smile, and for that, in a strange way, I give thanks. Not to her, never to her, but to life, for giving me a second chance, for teaching me who truly matters, for teaching me that family isn't who shares your blood or your last name. It's who stands by your side when everything falls apart, who lifts you up when you fall, who hugs you when you almost give up. And I had that. I have that. And I will carry it with me until my last day. Brenda's story ended in a cell, but mine continues, full of life, full of love, full of hope, because in the end, what counts isn't how many times we fall, it's how many times we get up. And I got up with help, with love, with determination. And here I am, alive, breathing, loving, being loved. And that for me is the victory. The biggest of all. If you got this far, thank you very much for following this journey. It was long, it was difficult, but necessary, because it demonstrates that no matter how dark the night, there is always the possibility of a new dawn. If you liked this story, like it. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Comment what you thought. Your opinion is very important to me. And if you can, become a member of the channel. Your support makes all the difference and helps me continue bringing stories that touch the heart, that make you think, that demonstrate that life is always worth it. Until the next story. And remember, while there is life, there is hope. While there is love, there are new beginnings. While there is truth, there is justice. Never give up, never stop fighting. Because your story isn't over yet. And rest assured, the best is yet to come.